Welcome to the GCSE Maths Advantage. I'm Dr. James Carter, and every episode I'm going to break down one topic, show you where the marks are, and give you a quick win you can use in your next exam. Whether you're targeting a grade 7 or pushing for a 9, let's get into it.
Hook. This one question lost more marks than any other on last year's papers. Students were asked to simplify an expression with surds and left an answer that looked simplified but lost method marks because a step was missing. Sound familiar? You might think surds are just awkward roots, but the marks are hiding in the steps you write down. Stay with me for the next 10 minutes and I'll show you the clean path.
I remember that one. Everyone left a messy denominator. Why did that cost marks, though?
Great question. Let's start with the concept, surds and fractional indices. First, a surd is an expression with a root that can't be simplified to a whole number, for example, square root of 3. Fractional indices are another way to write roots. X to the power of 1/2 is the square root of x. X to the power of 1/3 is the cube root. The key idea is they're the same object written two ways, and we switch between them because different steps become easier in different forms. Let me show you how and why.
Step 1. Converting. If you see root notation like root x, you can write it as x to the power of 1/2. Why do that? Because index laws like x to the power of a times x to the power of b equals x to the power of a plus b work cleanly with fractional powers. If you add or subtract powers, fractional indices make algebra straightforward. Always say aloud or write convert to indices when you do this. Examiners love the clarity.
So conversion isn't just a trick. It shows your method and makes combining terms easier.
Exactly. Step 2. Simplify using index rules. Example, simplify square root of a multiplied by a to the power of 1/3. Convert, square root of a is a to the power of 1/2, so multiply gives a to the power of 1/2 plus 1/3, which is a to the power of 5/6. Then decide what the required form is. If the question asks for a surd form, rewrite a to the power of 5/6 as a to the power of 1/6 multiplied by a to the power of 4/6 maybe, or as a to the power of 5 to the power of 1/6. The algebra is the reason behind the manipulation, not just memorizing steps.
Step 3. Rationalizing denominators. Historically, exams prefer no surd in the denominator. If you have 1 over root x, multiply top and bottom by root x to get root x over x. For expressions like 1 over root a plus root b, multiply by the conjugate, root a minus root b. Always show the multiplication by the conjugate, write it down. That line often earns a method mark, even if you slip an arithmetic sign later.
But when should I leave an answer with indices instead of rationalising?
Good point. If the question gives everything in index form or explicitly uses indices, leaving your answer as a fractional power is fine, sometimes cleaner. If the question writes roots or asks for a simplified surd form, rationalise. When in doubt, match the form used in the question, and say which form you're using, writing as indices or rewriting as surd. That small phrase is exam-friendly.
Now, the exam technique section. Here's where the marks live. A typical 3-mark surd question often breaks down as M1 for a correct conversion or setup, M1 for a valid algebraic manipulation, and A1 for the fully correct final answer in the requested form. Example marking. M1 for converting root x to x to the half, M1 for adding powers correctly, A1 for the simplified final power or rationalized form. If you can't complete the algebra, those first steps still pick up marks, so write them down.
What examiners look for? Clear notation, a conversion line if you used indices, showing multiplication by a conjugate when rationalizing, and a final boxed answer or underlined result. Don't skip intermediate steps. Even if you do them in your head, write them. Write it down, don't just think it. That's a catchphrase for a reason.
And common mistakes. Besides forgetting to flip signs, well, not flipping signs here, what do students usually lose marks for?
3 common slips. 1. Mixing surd and index notation without a clear conversion line, confusing the examiner. 2. Feigning to use the conjugate correctly and making a sign error. 3. Presenting an answer with a surd in the denominator when the question expects rationalised form. Each is avoidable by one habit. State your form, show the conversion, and always check the denominator. Let that sink in.
Quick win. A 10-second checklist you can use right away. I call it CSRS. Convert, simplify, rationalise only if required, substitute back. Convert to indices when combining, simplify using index laws, rationalise the denominator only if the question demands it, and substitute a simple value back in to check your algebra if time allows. Quick memory cue. CSR. Clean, show, ready.
That sounds doable in an exam. Can we hear a full worked example now, step by step?
Worked example. Simplify root x divided by x to the power of 1/3 and give your answer as a single power of x. Step 1. Convert. Root x equals x to the power of a half. So we have x to the power of a half divided by x to the power of a third. Step 2. Subtract powers when dividing. X to the power of a half minus a third equals x to the power of a sixth. Step 3. Present the final answer as x to the power of a sixth and underline it. Now marking. M1 for conversion, M1 for correct subtraction of powers, A1 for x to the power of a sixth. Common slip here is doing a half minus a third incorrectly. Write the fractions as sixths to avoid that. Read the question twice, solve it once.
Pause the episode now and try this mini question. Simplify 1 over root 3 plus root 5 and give the answer in surd form. When you play again, check that you multiplied by the conjugate and that the denominator became an integer. For marking, M1 for multiplying top and bottom by root 3 minus root 5, M1 for simplifying the denominator to 3 minus 5 equals minus 2 correctly, and A1 for the simplified final fraction, including the correct sign. I'll give you 10 seconds.
Right, so you get minus root 3 plus root 5 over 2 after simplifying and factoring the negative sign. That feels satisfying to check.
Exactly. If you got that, well done. If you made a sign error, don't worry, that's the most common slip. Next time, write the conjugate multiplication explicitly and cancel carefully. That's your practice loop. Try, check, and note where you lost a mark.
That's your quick win for today. If this helped, share it with a friend who's revising. You'll find more worked solutions and a downloadable one-page cheat sheet covering surds and indices at jcacademyonline.co.uk. Until next time, trust the process and nail that exam. Stay curious.